Monday on Cocktail Network Live. Watch One Drink With. Candid conversations with bottle flipping, shaker spinning cocktail creators from around the world. From Las Vegas to New York, London to Japan, what happens behind bars gets shared here. Starring Dean Serneels and Rob Husted. This week we share One Drink With Phil Wills.
We got a thumbs up from Rob. All right, welcome to One Drink with Phil Wills, but I'm Dean Serneels, and this is Rob Husted.
Hey, what's up, Dean? It looks great back there. I understand you're in a new place, a new studio while you're getting some stuff done. You want to explain to the audience what's going on?
Yeah, absolutely. My beautiful fiance, Allison, who's here with us tonight, is starting to produce our show, but she's starting to produce the show from her house. I've moved my studio into her house, and I'm starting to slowly move myself in too. It's a romantic comedy in action. So I'm slowly moving into Allison's, and as we go live, progress is better than perfection is the name of the game today. So this is my under construction studio. How's that?
The black curtain reminds me when we first started going live with me. So
yeah, it's so funny. It's so funny. I was thinking about that today when I was driving here. I was thinking, gosh, Rob went like a month it took him like a month to move, and now I'm about to do the exact same thing. So, progress is better, That's it.
I'm excited for today's show. We got a lot coming up with Phil Wills and a lot of great stuff to talk about, but we got some stuff that maybe Dean can talk about, some stuff in what we're doing right now.
Yeah, we're using some new technology. We should be on Facebook, we should be on YouTube, and the .com maybe as well. Trying to grow the reach and trying to get out there, and we'll see if we have any comments coming in. If you're on Facebook and YouTube and you can watch us, you might be able to see some comments. We'd love to have you drop us a line along the way. And people, please, we need some likes and subscribes and some shares. Our community is reached through the influence of everyone here in the spirit world. So help us get out there so we can spread the message of all these great personalities like Phil Wills and Ivan and who else have we had on? Vache and Olia and Dario Doimo.
Enzo Garcia.
Yes, yeah, we've had all kinds of great personalities on, and we hope to do some more. This is actually a celebration episode, Rob. It's episode 10. Is it what I
Ooh! But yeah, 10 episode anniversary. That's awesome. I feel like we should get each other a gift, maybe a drink in a little bit.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty thirsty already. Yeah.
I mean, you got one thing to talk about. You talk about growing the community, and Dean's 100% right. Like if you're watching on YouTube, watching on Facebook, we're trying to stream multiple ways, like you said, so you can actually ask your questions in the comments. We can drag those comments on, and you can actually ask our guests the questions. But another way we like to give back is by giving you some money. We have an online
that's right.
Yeah, we have an online contest going right now. That the deadline is actually this Saturday coming up, Saturday, October 22nd by midnight. Whoever comes up with the best new vodka and Real original cocktail gets $250. And the rules are simple. We kind of took the handcuffs off you for this one. No limit on ingredients, no limit on garnish. Homemade ingredients are allowed. The only thing is a minimum of 1 ounce of new vodka and a minimum of a ½ ounce of Real syrups, and go nuts after that. Upload the full recipe, a picture, and then it's worldwide, and hopefully you can be on the show as we bring back the winner and award them for $250, just like we did Jenna Marmaduke from Tampa not so long ago. Dean?
Yeah, that was pretty cool. We had Jenna Marmaduke on the show. She'd won the contest. She didn't know that she'd won, and she was so thrilled to be on the show. It was pretty awesome. We're going to have One Drink With in just a second, but Rob, I think you should say hi to Danny Williams. He says, we're looking good, guys.
I was just with Danny 2 nights ago in Tampa, he took me on his little golf cart and took me on a tour, took me to this amazing cigar bar that was in a church, and it was a great night. Danny has nothing but the best hospitality ever.
And there's Phil Raimondo. Phil Raimondo, hey, brother. We were actually just talking about you today. We were going through the list of all the people that we want on the show, and you were on the list, my friend. We almost reached out to you today. So let's get you in for November, Phil Raimondo. And James Stevens, all the way from Canada. You still in Niagara-on-the-Lake? What are you saying there? Everything you do is gold. Oh, I love you, brother. James Stevens, Phil Raimondo. Tampa. Yeah, I can't see the screen, so I'm like, ah. Nice. All right, guys, get your drinks out because it's time for One Drink With. Well, Rob and I need to make a drink before we have One Drink With Mr. Phil Wills, who's sitting in the green room putting up with our antics. All right.
You want to start us off?
I'm gonna start off here. We're gonna go to a wide shot. There it is. Oh, I'm right here. All right, I have not tasted this drink yet. I grabbed a whole bunch of things and put them on my backpack while I was leaving my office today. So I have 1 minute to make a drink. Let me just set my ice cubes here. Don't tell anybody I touched it with my hand, okay? It's for my lovely fiance and me, all right? All right. It's a little rickety, but this drink's going to be awesome. I'm pretty excited about it. We'll get it on the list in a minute. All right, here we go. To the smoke. All right, on this episode of One Drink With, I start off with some ice cubes and a little bit of Flair and some Patron tequila. We had our good friend Dario Doimo on the show a couple of weeks ago. He now works for Patron. Good for him. And some Ancho Rays, a little spice coming into the game here today. And my favorite Pina Real with real pineapple. There it is. Starting to run out of glasses. I bring in my finest call lemon, single pressed lemon, and sugar syrup. I'm going to shake that up. Alice's like, that glass is pretty full. But I have to make 2 drinks in a minute, in 4 seconds, in fact. Okay, don't make fun of my strainer. Click over.
Well done, and look, by the time you come back, it's done!
Hey!
2 drinks!
2 drinks in a minute, how's that? And a fabulous garnish here. I have some ginger from the sushi dinner we had tonight.
Nothing like foraging with your surroundings for cocktails.
To my beautiful fiance. All right, cheers, my dear. There it is. All right, Rob, bring it on, man.
All right, so for today's cocktail, it's actually a cocktail I'm tweaking for an upcoming event that I'm doing for a 50th birthday party. And it's funny because Anthony Cogburn just posted about it 2 days ago. I'm like, I'm actually working on one, so let's get into it.
Let's get into it. Smoke.
There we go. So we're going to use 1.5 ounce of Redemption Rye, bubble 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're going to use 1 ounce of finest call single press lemon and 1 ounce of a cinnamon syrup. Throw that right in our tin. And then we're going to use 1/2 ounce of aquafaba. And aquafaba, again, is just the water found in chickpeas. We're going to take that. We're going to use our flash blender to really blend that up. Shake that with some ice. Strain that into our rocks glass, already with ice. Garnish with a nice cinnamon sugar rim. And then we're going to top that with 1 ounce of a fruity Cabernet right on top of that bar spoon. And there we have the rye.
Two shot. Right on the Monday, brother.
Okay,
I have to.
like, how am I going to do a dry shake and a wet shake and do all this in a minute? I'm like, oh yeah, I remember when I first started bartending, we had these great spindle mixers at our bar. I'm like, that saves so much time. So that's how I'm going to do my dry shake at this event and knock out hundreds of these in a quick, timely manner.
Phil Wills remembers, though, as I'm sure Phil Raimondo does too. Hey, this is Rob and his shake. I was poking fun at you, man. You're looking great, man. Looking great.
Oh, good, buddy. Oh, one thing I was thinking of, Dean, is if you have a phone handy, I think maybe we should start taking pictures of our drinks so we can start maybe putting together a recipe book or something. Or
I think so too. Allison thought this drink was pretty darn tasty. I'm pretty happy with it too.
Awesome. Well, then, without further ado, let's bring on our guest, buddy.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is his second appearance on One Drink With. He was actually part of the second season of One Drink With. I was very excited to reach out to him then, as I am today. And he was also a guest on a fundraiser that we did for Shea Court when she had a family disaster. We were raising money. A very good friend of Cocktail Network Live and One Drink With and all of ours in the community. A spokesman and a mentor of ours in the community. Please put your hands together for Mr. Phil Wills.
Yeah.
There's the man.
Hey!
Oh. Cheers.
Nice.
What's up, fellas? How you guys doing?
Great. How are you, sir?
Fantastic. Fantastic. It's good to be here. And it's good to watch you guys make some drinks.
We enjoy it. It's almost like a little friendly competition every time Dean and I get together now.
It's funny, we're watching the show and we're counting each other down. 3, 2, 1.
Phil, first question though, what are you drinking, my friend?
Yes.
What am I? Yes. Well, similar to you, Dean, I've just made a big move cross country, so I don't have my studio set up right now.
Right.
So I'm working from the office at home, so I couldn't get too crazy with making the drink. So I'm drinking, and this label might be a little backwards, maybe not. It's called Flair Ranch.
Okay.
Straight white.
Where's it from?
Coming out of Nevada.
Nice.
And it's the oldest farm in Nevada, and they just started distilling spirits about 6 or 7 years ago. This is the first rye. It hasn't even been released yet, but it's phenomenal. So that's the drink I'm going to be sipping on with you guys.
All right, just straight rye whiskey.
I love it. I love it.
That's it. That's it. You know, desperate times for desperate measures.
You love it, man. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
All right, there we go.
But, you know, Dean, I do love that drink that you made, and you know, for me, before we get on to all the questions and everything, you know, Dean, you are like historically the showman. And you making that drink and pretty much everything you do, you're always a showman about it. And so much of my bartending skill and technique came from that showmanship that you always presented.
Oh, wow,
you know,
man.
In all your videos and everything you do right now, I always love to see it.
I appreciate that so much. I mean, Rob and I are just kind of tripping our way through this whole thing and making it happen. And to know you're out there and cheering us on and supporting us no matter what, I greatly appreciate that, Phil. Thank you so much, man.
No, and you know what, Rob? You're teaching people the bubble stop count and everything while you're doing it, too. Like, I was watching that, and you broke out the flash blender, and I'm like, oh, my God. This guy's going deep. And that was smart, because you had to do an egg white cocktail in a minute. Like, I was like, how the hell are you going to do this?
So it's all the tricks to learn, everything, and making all the mistakes and learning from it, and now passing that knowledge on, man. Thank you.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Phil, tell us what.
Yeah.
What have you been going to? Where are you moving to and from?
Man, you know, not a lot of people know this about me, but, you know, I grew up here in Southern California, and I spent some time living in Vermont when I was in high school. And my whole family lives back there. So myself, my wife, my little daughter, we all moved back to Vermont about 1.5 years ago.
Okay.
And it was a really long vacation, because now we're back on the west side. We moved back to California last month. So it's good to be back in the Golden State, in the land of sun. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I bet. I bet it is. Before we move on, Rob, I got a question for all of us. There's comments coming in from Facebook and YouTube, and I can't see them. Would you like Allison to just throw them on as we go and when she sees fit?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. I think it's a good idea. If it's, let's start with some questions first, and then we can go into our questions.
Cool. Is that Chris Cooper or Chris Cardone? Chris Cooper. Yeah, drop Chris Cooper up there to say hello. I was just chatting with Chris Cooper today. There he is, all the way from Mexico, Isle something in Mexico. Cool. Thanks, guys. Thanks for tuning in. We got some more James Stevens down there, Phil Raimondo. Yeah, lots of big names coming in and watching us now that we're on Facebook. So this works, Rob. Good call,
Phil
man.
Raimondo? Wait, I mean, I heard
the Phil Raimondo.
Yeah, you have to get him out. We know a lot of these people and a lot of the Flair bartenders, but Phil is he's a legend. He is a legend in our industry. Get him on here. He has the best stories. Every time we run into each other, I just love listening to him talk.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he's a great showman too. From back in the Flair days, and he used to run Flair bartending competitions as well, down in Florida, and Bar Stars, I think it was. And he's also a very accomplished magician. So Phil has a question apparently. Can you read that question, Phil Wills?
Yeah, I see it.
When did you realize that the Flair world or the bartending world was going to be your career?
That's a fantastic question. I think the moment I realized it was going to be my career, I had gone through the gamut of, bartending, TGI Fridays, all that stuff, and being an operator and becoming a general manager of a restaurant. I always knew I was going to be going back to bartending at some point, and I ended up going back to bartending and working my way into a bunch of mixology bars out here in LA, really honing my craft in. And I think when I realized that bartending was going to be my career was when I actually realized that there was more beyond the bar. And I don't think enough people talk about that as far as a career in our industry. They think they have to be behind the wood the whole time. And, I don't want to be a 55, 60-year-old bartender. As I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, but
right.
I didn't see that. And then I started to realize that there's all these other avenues that you can take. And I had a ton of knowledge. Obviously, to that point, I opened up probably 140 stores, bars and restaurants, and I had all this knowledge about being an operator and got an opportunity to start consulting on some smaller projects. And when I saw that and the influence I could have on a larger community is when I realized that this is actually a profession and it's not just a side gig.
That's awesome.
If that answers your question.
I hope it does. That was Phil's question. All right, I'm just getting myself organized back in here.
All right, so I'll start off then, Dean. We'll just switch
please do, sir.
For the people that most of us know who you are, but the ones that are watching that don't know who you are, tell us a little bit about your career and how you started off to when you knew, like what you just kind of touched about, but when this was a real career for you.
Yeah, man. That's a good question, and it's a good point that you make, because in the opening of the show, you guys were naming off a bunch of industry bartenders that I highly respect. I follow on their Instagram. I've know them well. Some of them are really good friends of mine. Some of them I've just met at competitions or just in the industry. And I don't set out to be necessarily a household name. I think that really for me, it's just about educating and trying to make our industry a lot better. I've been awarded some opportunities throughout my career, which have kind of taken me into a different level, which is kind of nice. But I started off, just as a server for TGI Fridays. And the only reason I was a server is because I wanted to be a bartender. And going in there, they just laughed at me and they said, no, there's 100 people that want to be a bartender ahead of you. So I had that mentality of really getting into it when I was a server and becoming a bartender for TGI Fridays. And this was way back in the day. I don't want to age myself, but it was back in the day when Fridays was super craft and kind of the leaders in the industry. And they're a different concept now, not a bad concept, but they're just not necessarily the leaders in the industry. But that's where I honed my craft, and 10 plus years of bartending for TGI Fridays and doing multiple competitions. Got coerced to walk on over to the dark side and become a general manager, which actually benefited me because then I understood operations and how to control money, and it helped me out more with finances and personal life and just kind of understanding that whole field. And from there, I left Fridays in the corporate world and jumped into the independent world of mixology and craft bartending here in Los Angeles, and just started really, paying a little bit more attention, realizing that there's a huge world out there when it comes to bars and restaurants, and all of them are great, dive bars, corporate bars, Flair bars, cocktail bars, high-end bars. They all serve their purpose. And I just wanted to be able to influence them as much as I could. And that's when I got into consulting, had a few opportunities, and started my consulting business, The Spirits of Motion, with a really good friend of mine about 10 years ago. And along that time when it started, I was working at a bar that we had consulted on and opened up in Hollywood. And lo and behold, a producer for the show Bar Rescue walked in there and just said, "You'd be great for the show. Why don't you, give this number a..."
Oh, looks like Phil jumped out. It looks like he lost something. Go back to me. Phil's camera he just disappeared on us, as does happen a couple of times every now. Here he comes. Hey, brother! Welcome back. Was that us or you?
Hey,
I don't know. It's like the Emmys when like the music starts to come on. I was like, oh, shit. I was talking too much.
Wonderful.
Let me go back, because you touched on something I've been dying to ask, and you touched on TGI Fridays, and those of us old school bartenders know the value of all the training and the level and everything they taught back then, and the people, the new bartenders of today, don't really understand that. Can you explain a little bit of all the training that you had to go through as a TGI Fridays bartender back then, and how you benefited from it, if you did?
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, good question, man. I tell you, it's I had to learn 350 drinks before I even stepped foot behind the service bar, and that was like a written test. So you learn them, and they kind of go. Then I had the opportunity to get behind the service bar, and I spent at my store when I started on, I spent a year in the service bar and had like a couple of those morning bartending shifts.
Right.
And then I transferred. I was on the East Coast, and I transferred to California. I had to spend another year in the service bar and get a couple of shifts, and eventually worked my way through. But
so you had to earn your way up on every time you changed the location. You had to earn your way back up to the top.
Exactly. You had to earn your way back up to the top. And you talk about Rob talked about training and the training that I had to go through. But the great thing about what I felt like Fridays back in the day is there was ongoing training. So there was always the regional rounds of bar champs, and bar champs people think of like Flair bartending and everything, but with Fridays, on the ground level, it was really about testing, knowing your pours, knowing your perfect slices of fruit to the tea, knowing what each glassware is supposed to go into, all the theories and philosophies. So there was testing that always went on that kept us honest and kept us very dialed into our job. The Flair part of it was something that was incorporated, that was always there, and if you wanted to take it to another level, you could. And there was obviously a bunch of people that did take it to another level. But the good thing about Fridays bartending back in the day is the consistency with training and education.
Right.
100%. Speaking of the Flair, how far did you actually make it along in their World Flair competitions? I know you competed at the in-store. Tell us where your journey went from there.
Yeah, so I made it all the way up to the divisional level, the Western Division level. Competed against all the greats. Didn't quite make it. Made it to the second round, but started actually bar backing for the world competition, and I've hosted the TGI Fridays World Competition 4 times now and been a judge twice. So everything kind of comes full circle, and I wish I would have made it there as a competitor, but I never made it to that level as a competitor. Almost though, but I was champion. I was West Coast champion 3 years in a row.
Hell yeah. And some of the best judges have been some of the best competitors. So you've proved that you're an amazing judge from being there, from doing this competition in the past. So well done, my friend. I think we have a question from the audience, if Allison's I'm reading the text correctly.
Yeah. Chris Cooper had a question. Chris Cooper from Team Canada. Can you guys read that question? It's too far away for these old eyes.
Question for all. Go to quick cocktail for those guests who say, "Oh, what's your go-to cocktail for when guests say make me something?" Phil, I'll let you start.
I mean, Chris, that's a great question, but it's a tough question. You got to have some sort of a conversation. You're looking for something sweet, fruity, spirit forward. It's all about doing that navigation in the beginning. Too many times bartenders will just go to what's in their pocket. And I say in their pocket, like the top of their pocket, like, oh, this is what everybody's going to love. Everybody's palate's different. So you have to get some sort of knowledge from that guest. And then from there, you can start to differentiate. What I always do in training, Rob and Dean, I'm sure you guys do this too, is I always tell bartenders to have about 8 to 10 cocktails that they're able to make on the fly, and knowing their flavor profiles, like fruity, spirit forward, a little bit spicy, something bubbly. So then you go to that guaranteed mix. But if you put Saint Germain elderflower liqueur in anything, it makes it great because it's a catch up to the bar.
Very
all right,
true.
So put Saint Germain in it, you're good.
I do something really similar, Chris, that I actually learned from Dean Serneels at an event we did back in 2007 called Mixology Matters, and it's called the Taste Access Grid. I ask them literally 2 questions. Do you want something sweet, sour, strong, or weak? And then from that, they usually kind of group that together. Oh, give me something strong and sweet. And then my second question is, are there any flavors you don't like? I don't care about spirits. I don't want to remake a margarita you had before. Give me something you don't like. So I don't want to make this amazing coconut drink. Oh, and you don't like coconut. So once you have that grid of sweet, sour, strong, weak, you have a pin on the map. Now you have a demographic, and from there you just build on it. And then always make sure to follow up with anything you don't like. So that's how I handle it. Dean, how about you?
I taught you well, Rob. Thank you very much. Strong, weak, sweet or sour. That's it. Because it does put you on that grid, just like you said, Rob. And you learn so much about the little parts in between where they're like, oh, I kind of like it strong. So they're not looking for a shot of whiskey. So you kind of read between the lines on there and know that you're probably going to be shaking something. Or really sweet, and then I'm probably going to be blending something with lots of puree in there. So yeah, and after that, it's a chocolate old fashioned, Chris. Chris Cooper has tasted my chocolate old fashioned and some versions of it along the way. That's my other go-to, the chocolate old fashioned.
But like Phil said, you got to have that conversation. Looks like Jen has a question for you. Can you bring that back, Allison? I think it said something about what do we think the upcoming trends are for this coming year? Yes, for 2023. Dean,
Right.
you start out. You're pretty close with that.
That's a great question, Jen. This is really turning out. We've got these comments flying in now. It's amazing. We've been trying to figure this tech out, and here it is. Allison has saved the day. Pineapple and passion fruit. Passion fruit has been super strong. And the sourness of that passion fruit. The palates, of course, are getting less sweet and going more dry, and people are liking more of that sour and that strong spirit forward flavor. Phil, fill us in.
No, I mean, you're right on with the pineapple and the passion fruit. I think that we're going to continue to see a rise in low and no ABV cocktails.
Right.
I've been talking about that for the last 6 years, and I think the last couple of years it started to really catch on. But if you look at what they're doing overseas and in the UK and that type of stuff, like the low and no cocktail scene is phenomenal. People want to have a little bit more control of their body when they go out. They don't want to have much alcohol going into them, but they want to have a good time. So I still see that having a place and continuing to eat up a little bit more of our marketplace.
What are you using for no and lows? Like to replace your spirit with, Phil? Sorry, Rob. We'll get to yours in a second.
Just happen to have some right here.
Yeah. All right, Rob, take it away then.
Well, yeah.
I was going to.
Rob's breaking out bottles right on top, so maybe we hit something right on the money.
Yeah, looks like.
Echo something that Phil said. I think low ABV is a big trend coming out now. Seedlip is doing a great job with what they're doing. I think a lot of them are close. I don't think any of these brands have quite got it yet because that mouthfeel quite isn't there.
Right.
But there's ways around that. And I think as bartenders, we're all learning how to do that by adding maybe agave or adding meat to it to get the capsule so you feel that little something in your neck while you're in the back of your throat while you're drinking it. But also, not only low ABV cocktails, but low ABV spirits. I know there's some spirits coming out next year that are gunning towards that. I can't really say any names yet, but like that is Phil hit the money on the head. That's where I think the trends are going for next year is healthier low ABV cocktails.
Rob, let me ask you this question about your ABV cocktails or your low ABV cocktails. When using bitters have 40% alcohol in them. But there's only 2 dashes of that being spread out over the entire cocktail. Is that now a no alcohol cocktail, like Angostura? I know where you're going there, but you got to answer this question first.
I am, but this is my way around it. I love Fee Brothers bitters because there is no alcohol. They use glycerin and it's alcohol free. So in all my spirit free cocktails, I use Fee Brothers bitters for that reason alone.
Right. But if we're using Angostura in a non-alcoholic cocktail, Phil, talking about bitters, where Angostura has 40% alcohol in it, can we use that in a low cocktail? Yes, but in a non-alcoholic cocktail, can we get away with Angostura bitters 2 dashes?
You can't get away with it, but you can have a disclaimer.
Okay.
And think of it like people that are going through, AA, or they're just like, I'm not drinking, I can't have any alcohol in my system. So if we do use something like Anglo bitters or most bitters out there, outside of obviously Fee Brothers and a few other ones,
right.
If there's alcohol in there, you definitely want to make sure that you have that conversation either with your guests or on your menu that, hey, just so you know, Angostura bitters does have alcohol in it. In case it's a religious thing or if it's something that people just want to stay away from.
That's right. I guess I should have rephrased my question as to how do you suggest we deal with it as opposed to how do we? So
to reiterate what Phil said, to back him up on what we're all agreeing with.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
The USBG just had their IBA World Cocktail Championship Classic qualifier. So they challenged bartenders from around the nation to come up with their best cocktail to represent them in the United States of bartending at the World Cocktail Championship. And the qualification was a low ABV cocktail this year. First time ever that I can remember.
That's great. That's great. I hope that answers Jen's question. I got to go find my questions. This is great. Hey, more questions coming in from the audience. The better. I think we're all open to it. There's lots of conversation going on in there. I wish I could see it myself. I'm so old.
Dean, you want me to lead you off, or you want me to just go on the next question?
No, I wanted to talk. I want to get back to the Fridays thing a little bit, Phil. I know we want to talk about bar rescue, etc., but the Fridays Flair scene was so impactful to the entire industry. I mean, Flair started at Fridays, or at least modern Flair, if you will, started at Fridays. How far back do you know the story of how it started and where it started?
That's a great question.
From your own experience of it, what did they teach? I'm not sure. I just want to try to get to the history.
It was always, to not name any names, it was always a TGI Fridays bartenders taught Tom Cruise how to do the tricks in cocktail.
Right.
Flair started before that, which is how it kind of got into the mainstream of just flipping a bottle and doing something a little bit different. There's a lot of different versions of who started it and who kind of championed that with Fridays, but I think it was really a collective effort. I don't think that there was one person that had a like this great idea of, I'm going to flip a bottle and pour it into a glass. To your point, Dean, Flair has been going on in the bar industry for longer than we even know. what's written and what we see as far as history goes with like the blue blazer and everything like that, that is a piece of it. However, if you think about like some of your greatest bartenders and just people that are great behind the bar, for me, when I teach simple Flair, it's something as simple as taking a piece of trash and throwing it over your shoulder into the trash can. Like that's an actual piece of Flair. You know, just having some fun behind the bar, doing things that are a little bit different, that are a little bit out of the norm of what your normal movement or routine would be. And I think that all those things that I'm talking to you, Dean, who's a great entertainer, are part of the things that entertain your guest. Even small things when you're doing like fun little jokes across the bar or little like magic tricks across the bar. So those things kind of evolved into where we are today and what we see now with that first person, and call it John out in, you know, California decided he wanted to flip a bottle into a pour, and everybody's like, oh my gosh, that's astonishing. We want everybody to do that. It's because somebody noticed somebody doing it, but I guarantee it's been done in the bar many times. So Flair, I think behind the bar.
So John Mezcal might have been the first to flip it into a pour, but we can go back 100 years before that. I've got lots of books, and I need to dig them out for future conversations like this, that document Flair bartending back in the 1830s, or bartenders that sounded like or were being described as though they were bartending with Flair. So it's been around.
But not to discredit John and what he did, because he did help to escalate it onto the platform that it is today. Somebody saw what he did and loved it and started to take off. And obviously Cocktail the movie came out. People were flipping bottles and doing tricks before Cocktail the movie came out. It just let the general public know other things that we could do behind the bar. And then you started to see a lot of bartenders start to latch onto that and try to be Tom Cruise.
Yeah, well, I'm one of them. Yeah, totally. John Bandy teaching Tom Cruise got me into Flair for sure. I started bartending in 1988, the same year the movie came out, if I'm that old. Yeah.
You don't look a day over 22.
Alcohol is a preservative, you know.
It's true. This is true.
All right, let's fast forward to Bar Rescue, where you've had a critical acclaim and perhaps your biggest statement in the industry. How's your experience? Let me get this one out of the way. John Taffer, he seems like a pretty brash guy on TV. How is he in person? Tell us about that.
He's good. He's
I've heard a lot of awesome things about him.
Yeah, he's a great guy. He's a super intelligent person just in general. And obviously with business and bar business, he's intelligent. Love to listen to him and listen to him talk and listen to how his brain works. And I obviously have learned a ton from him when it comes to business. You know, I think that you talked about like Bar Rescue kind of elevating me into being a heavyweight in the industry. And to some degree, yes, it has. But I think to another degree, it's just kind of elevated my persona or personality to the general public, people that aren't even in our industry. However, you know, I do speak to, you know, a lot of bartenders when I'm on the show, and people understand what I'm talking about when I'm doing my training. I'm creating these cocktails. I'm developing, you know, these balanced menus with John and having a lot of fun out there. But, you know, I think what Bar Rescue has done for me is opened me up to a wider audience, which is great. And I appreciate that. And you know, I want to continue to inspire and educate and train as much as I can. I think within our industry, our bartenders, especially people that come on your show, they watch Bartender or Bar Rescue and they're like, oh, that's amateur hour for bartenders. And it kind of is, because we're going into a restaurant to help these bartenders that haven't had any training, haven't spent any time behind the bar, actually be able to pour a drink and shake a cocktail. So it is a little bit amateur for people that are in our industry. But I think like business owners and just the general viewing public love the show, and it's opened up a ton of opportunities and doors for me along the way. So can't be more happy than being on it.
That's awesome. Yeah, Rob.
Phil, let me ask you this: like, we've known a lot of the same people and different trainers from different shows and different bar consulting stuff. We hear different things of sometimes the producers like to, you know, put an earpiece in your ear and kind of feed you some information. not saying that's bad or good, but what should people be walking into that are doing maybe a consulting thing for the first time on camera for a show? What little tips that can you give them to make sure that they do a great job on camera and give the proper education as well walking forward?
Yeah, I think that it's funny you're asking me about like on-camera etiquette. The most important thing is that you're just being yourself. So if you want to, like an example, when I did my very first episode back in the day, I went to the producer and I said, "Hey, how do you want me to act?" Because I do have some acting background. And he looked at me like I was crazy. He's like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "Well, how do you want me to act? How do you want me to be? Do you want me to be like crazy? You want me to have, a very bad attitude?" And he's like, "Dude, just be yourself. Just go out there and do what you do." And I was like, that's my light bulb that made me understand that I can literally just be myself on the show and train the bartenders how they need to be trained and not look for, any of the craziness going on, because that wasn't my role or responsibility in the show. So it was kind of just relaxing to me that I can just go out there and be a trainer. I've had some run-ins on the show. I've had some issues with bartenders, and really it's because they've been defiant, or they've sworn at me, or they said that what I'm doing is wrong when I've been in the industry for 20 plus years. So that kind of happens as well, but ultimately it's just me being myself. So I think for anybody that is a consultant, anybody that is in front of a camera, if you're doing some local news feed or daytime talk shows and stuff, I do a lot of that type of stuff. Ultimately, the general rule of thumb about being in front of a camera is just be yourself. Whether you have a script in front of you and you're reading from the script, or you're just acting on reality and you're just doing what's like really happening. What portrays to the viewing audience is that you are yourself and you're just being yourself. That's the most important thing.
Phil, I think that's great advice, and I think you just educated a lot of people across the world with that, and being stuff like, because you're right. I would ask the same thing. Like, you feel like you have to fit this mold, and when they said be yourself, like that had to be such freeing for you. I'm like, some great advice. Let me ask you this: what are
I watched it.
What?
I'm sorry, just a button on that real quick. I watched some episodes now, and I see some mixologists that they filter through and they work with, and you can tell when they're acting like something and they're trying to be something. And I'm just like, I watch the show and I'm just like, dude, just like be yourself. Like, go out there and train. Like, if you know your shit, like, you're gonna be good. You don't have to like try to be something. So yeah, be yourself, guys.
Great comment. And Philip, well, let me ask you this: from the consulting you do on camera and off camera, what are maybe some of the top 3 things you generally see of opportunities to fix, and what are the solutions for them?
Probably my top 3 things are, let's see, that's a tough one. I think number 1 is, let's look at, you want to divide it up into 3 different categories, really. I look at beverage and cocktail menu and pairings and what they have. That's one little bucket. I look at training systems, what they have in place for education. That's another bucket. And then the other bucket is the business and marketing, and are you reaching the right demographic? So you're looking at 3 different things. And I guess in cocktails, the most important thing is that you're making a cocktail menu that's for your guest and for your region, and not for what you personally like. Because if I made every cocktail menu for what I personally like, it wouldn't be successful. The training thing and the training part and the education part is so important that, if you don't have a training program, if you just throw a bartender that might have experience behind the bar into your bar and expect them to know how your bar runs, then you're going to fail. Spend some time training, spend time teaching those brand new employees, or even those current employees, a new skill and education. You never want to stop learning. So with my programs that I develop, I always say every single month we got to have some sort of education for the staff and the bartenders, so they can feel engaged and they can feel like they're learning something. And then the third bucket is the business side of things and the demographics and the whole part of it. And that's really taking a deep dive into the numbers, looking at the back of the house, cost control, P&L. And it's like a lot of what I call the boring stuff, but as a business owner, it's the most important part of it. And too many times business owners will spend all their time in the front of the house and never spend time looking at the numbers and learning how to control their business.
Sometimes you got to spend time on the business and not in the business.
Exactly. Boom.
Right.
That's a secret right there.
Rob, you had a question?
Oh no, I was going to go into that was my last question, but
We
I
have a
think
question from Chris Cooper. If we can bring in a Chris Cooper question. Where does Flair fit into the future of bartending? Is it a fad or is it a new brand of bandits going to continue the brand? I still palm spin. We lost the
Still
question.
palm spin shampoo bottles and toss behind my back in the shower.
I still palm spin shampoo bottles and toss them behind my back in the shower.
TMI.
Too much information.
I'm
Let's
going to
bring
take
us all on. Phil, where do you think Flair fits into the future of bartending?
I want to look at it like impartially, because Flair is near and dear to my heart, and I'm going to say
Right.
it's the best thing ever, of course. And I know that you guys have done a lot of work in the industry, not just with bars and bartenders and cocktails and flavor pairings and all that, but in our Flair bartending world. And a lot of things that you guys are working on are huge. I think that Flair kind of saw a downfall right before COVID. And ironically, us being locked inside and not being able to go out, we saw a resurrection with Flair. You're going to see Chris Cooper. A lot of people are going to be doing palm spins in your local bars. They've been watching videos all through COVID, and there's some phenomenal people that have come out on social media that are doing training and teaching, and bartenders want to have fun with it. And I follow a bunch of people, so you're going to see a lot more of it. I don't think that it's going to have its hype that it had before.
In the early 2000s,
and early 2000s.
Right.
I don't think it's going to have that hype because it's not the brand new shiny toy. So what's happening right now is it's going through a resurrection, I guess you could say, and it's going through like a social media or online or digital resurrection, and you're going to still see a lot of that. I just think it's going to be different from where it was in the early 2000s and the late 90s, but I think it's here to stay. I think it's as we talked about from the early 1800s, Flair is found in our cocktail books. So it's in our DNA. It's what we do. And, it's people like you. It's people like, myself and Dario and the Delpesches and everybody that's the Vaches, everybody that's paved the way, and Ivan and Olia. Like, there's just like, from all over the world, Flair is really expanding and growing.
Right.
And you're going to see a lot more of it. I don't think it's going to have the hype, but you're going to still see it have a major presence in bars and restaurants.
I think we're going to see more of it in bars and restaurants on a consistent, like you said, forever basis, especially with all the social media guys out there, because a lot of the social media guys are switching over from I'm just showing off my big moves to let me teach you some moves. It seems like they're all going through their own evolution, right, where they show off and then they start teaching and then they go on to something else. But there's so much knowledge out there now, like in our phones, like all the knowledge of the world is in our phones now, right? So I'd like to see that it locks in and stays, and we're hoping to get some big bartending competitions going on in 2023. That's one of our big picture plans. So maybe we can bring some of that back. Phil, with the success of the documentary, we're working on Shaken and Stirred, the rise, fall, and resurgence of Flair bartending. With the success of it, if it has great success, what do you see it having as an impact on the industry?
Oh man, I think that it's gonna get a lot of those younger bartenders that are just back there with their side gig and they're just trying to fill in and have a 9 to 5. See that there's another world out there, another opportunity for them. I love the aspect of competitions and people going and compete. As you guys know, as you have run them and competed in them, they're very stressful and anxiety filled. And maybe this is something that can be worked on, but I think that like smaller, fun-filled Flair style competitions need to bridge that gap. And I'll be honest, like for me growing up, I would look at these major competitions like Legends of the World and Roadhouse, and I'm just like, there's no way in hell I'll ever make it there. But I could win my Western Division TGI Fridays competitions and do some smaller regional and have some fun doing that. There's got to be something in the middle. And, you know, I did judge a comp in Denver, which I loved the bridge of mixology with Flair. And I thought that that was like super awesome. I do think that people need to be encouraged on a novice level of, hey, get back there behind the bar, show me a palm spin, do a flip to a pour and a toss behind the back, maybe a couple of exchanges, 2 to 3 items at the most. This is your competition. Let's rock and roll, and feature those type of people. And I think that if we want to see Flair grow, we need to have that bridge. We can't put Flair bartenders that do phenomenal shows so high on a pedestal that these people that want to try never want to take the next step because they feel like getting to the top is too high. But, you know, with your doc, I think that it's going to expose a lot. I do know that there's also a Netflix show that just came out that bridges on the side of mixology and that crazy
Drink Masters, yeah.
Drink Masters, yeah. And, you know, obviously a bunch of our industry friends are on there and everything like that. So I'm so excited to see that because now we're showing what this side of the world is with crazy mixology and high end and sous vide and smoke and fire and flames and different presentations. We're showing the fun side of things with Flair and flipping and just that going out there and having a good time. So, you know, the best part about it is media coverage in our industry, and that's what we need in order for everything to grow.
And it's coming, man. It's coming.
Yeah.
We've had two other conversations today while we were talking to some of the people in our media department. 2 other conversations of 2 other shows that are currently casting as well as. I mean, Drink Masters is coming out in a couple of weeks. We're excited about it. Hey, is that smoke and the fire and all the cool garnishes that those guys are doing on the show, is that not Flair?
It is 100%.
Right?
1,000%. Are you kidding
right?
me? That's all. Yes.
Right? When I've got some kind of awesome thing coming off of here and I go, holy crap, that's amazing. That's Flair to me, right? Because I've taken that to a performance level, you know? So the garnish, the drink, you know, when you pour the butterfly tea in and the drink goes from yellow to purple and you're like, what? That to me is Flair too, not the juggling the bottles, you know? It's all the spectrum.
Yeah, I think there's what the biggest takeaway from this is there's many different levels of Flair. There's exhibition Flair, there's what we called working Flair, there's functional Flair, there's street Flair, there's craft Flair, and there's cocktail Flair. But I think I agree with Phil with what he's saying. To answer your question is, I think Flair for the future is going to be less from that hype level of extreme 6 bottles, 2 tins, you know, objects, to bringing it back behind the common bar, just having fun behind the bar. But more importantly, it shows a mastery of tools that I know exactly how to use my tools, that I'm having fun with it now and just being efficient. And I think that's the future for Flair. And I would love to keep seeing it go that way.
And really, like I've interviewed a number of different 1980s early Flair Fridays guys, all those names, and Flair at Fridays started that way, where they were just trying to get the attention from their next bartender, right? The barback was like, hey, if I start throwing glasses around, I'll be as cool as those cool bartenders, and that started, and then the flip to a pour, you know, and it just kind of evolved there, but it was all practical and just as a way of putting on a show. So I would like to see all of it come back with the catalyst that we all know how to make great drinks now. And it's not just, vodka sodas going across the bar. We're making great drinks with some personality. And if the Flair is built into the personality, that's where I am anyway.
Yeah, 100%. And, you know, like if anybody's out there watching and if they take a look at this and you work at a local dive bar, little corner bar, some of my favorite, I'm looking for the local dive. I'm looking for the dirtiness. I'm looking for the grunge. I'm looking for just having a shot and a beer and having a good conversation with the bartenders. And to Dean's point, there's so many different levels of Flair. Even that old curmudgeon behind the bar that's serving up my shot of Malort when I'm in Chicago. And he's telling me a story about what happened with the Chicago White Sox when he was around. Me engaged listening to that story is what's bringing me back for service. So, you know, don't think that Flair has to be some sort of trick that you're giving somebody. Flair is just being a phenomenal a phenomenal
Right.
bartender behind the bar and a phenomenal person.
And I
Having a good
think the
time.
word engagement, you use the word engagement, and that's really what's going to set this apart because, you know, you go into a bar now, and it's not even so much the people are looking at the 100 TVs in the bars; they're looking at their phones.
Yeah.
And to have an engagement, like a human interaction with a bartender, uh, isn't like it was in the past, you know. So all of this is going to just lead to more engagement and actual conversation and more socializing in bars. If we're doing some cool stuff, worth putting the phone down so that I can watch the bartender work.
Right. Yeah.
Agreed. So, Phil, tell us a little bit about, before we wrap it up, Spirits in Motion and what you do with that company and how someone can maybe hire you for your services.
Yeah, you know, the Spirits Motion is a company I said before, a buddy of mine, actually my best friend and I started about 10 years ago when we started venturing off out of the hourly pay or the corporate world. And we do a lot, man. You know, there's a lot of stuff that goes on in the beverage world behind the scenes that people don't even know. And I know that Dean's a big part of this with ADM and the stuff that he does. But we do a lot of drink creations, following trends, helping to identify the trends and figure out how to adapt them into the bar world. We do a lot of ideation, obviously, not just with cocktails, but with concept development, how to like reduce labor within your bar staff, and you know put a little bit more money to the bottom pocket. One thing that we didn't really talk about, we did talk about a lot about what Friday's training was back in the day. We're helping to develop new ways of training because the younger generation that's coming into our hospitality world in general, they have a different way of learning. They have a different way of thinking. So we're starting to adapt to their way of thinking and the way that they can best utilize the information that we give them. So there's a lot of things that we do, but we're a full service beverage consultancy. Check us out on the web, spiritsomotion.com, and you can see everything that we do.
There it is.
Tell
right
you
there.
what.
Nice.
Yeah, we're gonna. There's your website there, Phil. If you want to guide us through it a little bit, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
Let's see what we got going here. Boom. Can you see it okay?
I mean, I see it.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. If you guys can see it, then there's the home page. Tell me where to go, Phil, and tell us a little bit about your company.
Okay, yeah. So again, go to spiritsomotion.com, and you can navigate your way through there. You know, and just as we look at it and we talk about it, that's my business partner right there, Tony. You know, one thing that we do is take like some of these super high-end trends that tend to be unachievable and adapt them to, you know, a more 3-4 ingredient cocktail. So, you know, I think one of the benefits that we have now is we work a lot with data companies and people that do a lot of research on what the trends are and flavor trends, and we're able to use those trends into our drinks. But it's a lot of fun, and we're constantly growing, adapting. We're doing a lot of behind the scenes work, but we have a lot of big projects going on right now. So yeah, check us out, spiritsomotion.com.
Good stuff.
That's my business.
Congratulations.
Oh, the site looks beautiful.
It's fun. It needs to be updated, but thanks, Rob. Yeah.
What website doesn't need to be updated?
No, actually, yeah. We update it, and then 3 months later, it's like we need to update it again. It's like, oh,
yeah, there's just
doing too
no
much
way
here.
to keep up with it. No way to keep
Right.
up with it.
So Dean, if you're okay with it, I'd like to bring us to the last sip. We kind of reflect back and share a word of sage advice of what we've each taken back from this episode. You know, all three of us, and then we'd like to do is Phil keep on afterwards and do a new segment we're starting today. So you're the first official one called One More Drink With, where we're doing a special subscription based thing where we have a second conversation with some fun stuff we're going to have in store. So Phil, if you're okay with that,
Yeah.
awesome. All right. So
and Rob, I would like to invite Phil to join us in our final sip of the day.
100%.
Where our final sip of the drink, we share something that we took from the episode. Rob, I'll let you go first, and then I'll go, and we'll wrap it up with Phil, and then some closing comments after that, I suppose. Rob.
I think my final sip was kind of what we all talked about is know your worth. Like everything that we've done, know the value of it, and then don't be afraid to market it, and don't worry about imposter syndrome. Put yourself out there, and you never know where it'll take you.
Beautiful. I'll take it from here. Da, 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 da. I have first a cheers to go out. Actually, I'm going to save that. My final sip of the day is that Flair does not have to be big bottles in the air. It doesn't have to be dangerous moves that risk the alcohol or risk bodily harm. Flair can be as simple as that smoking cocktail or a flip to a pour. It doesn't have to be the big show, and certainly doesn't have to be stepping away from the bar. Flair can be very small and simple, and just a way of keeping people engaged in the bar. Mr. Wills.
Oh, my final sip of the day.
Yes, sir.
Is that, if you listen to Rob, you listen to Dean, you listen to myself, we all are talking about the same thing. And it's about being behind the bar, knowing your worth. Flair doesn't have to be big, but it's about engagement. So I think that the takeaway for me, I'm hoping people take away, is that if you are behind the bar, it's all about engagement. And if you're going to a bar and the bartender is not engaging with you and you wonder why you're not having a good time, that's where I would look first, is look at the bartenders and look at their engagement with you.
Awesome. Good stuff. 3 shots. Perfect. And that brings us to a close of One Drink with Phil Will. That'll be the last thing, right? I was looking through the bottom of our glasses. Hey, I want to do a shout out to all the people that have commented. We're finally getting to where we wanted to be with our technology here. Lots of comments coming in from, is that Bryce Duncan? Oh, I can't see it. Lots of great people commenting and throwing in their comments, from Danny Williams, Chris Cooper, and Phil Raimondo, James Stevens. James Stevens was talking about bumping into you in Las Vegas, Phil. And if we could all raise our glass to my beautiful fiance, Allison, who's not going to be on camera tonight, for helping to produce and jumping into the hot seat in the cockpit of our studio here and bringing the whole show together live for us. Allison, thank you very much. Love you very much. So cheers to Allison, guys. Rob, any final comments? Phil?
Yep, we're going to end the regular segment and go into the One More Drink With, which will eventually put up details on cocktailnetworklive.com, because we're still trying to figure this out.
Thank you very much, Phil Wills. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Phil Wills. Let's go to the 2-shot with Rob. Close up of me. There it is. Yeah, Rob, great episode. Phil Wills is always a pleasure to have on the show. He's always got such great insight to the industry, and he's always so embedded in the industry, with Bar Rescue and his Spirits in Motion. It's just great to have him on.
Let's start the segment from now. One More Drink With. So, Dean, do you want to do an intro, and then we'll bring Phil back on, and then we'll just see where it goes?
Yeah. Well, we have to end the broadcast first. We're gonna say goodbye to all of our viewers.
That's what I just asked. Okay, so let's end the broadcast.
Yeah. Yeah, you guys are gonna have to bug us if you guys want to watch the after show. You're gonna have to bug us in the comments, call us, and say, "Hey, we want to be part of it." And reach out to you. Thank you very much, everybody. This is One Drink with Dean Serneels and
Rob Husted.
Thanks, Phil Wills.